Hedonists. Even the blissful existence of the fingerfishers would have seemed bothersome to the hedonists, for their kind was not evolved but designed for a life of pleasure. The Q had kept them as pampered pets, set loose in a tropical island world of succulent fruits, bountiful trees, and calm lapping lakes full of sweet bacterial manna. Furthermore, the hedonists were left as the only animal life on this place. They had no choice but to enjoy it to the fullest. In normal conditions, any given species would quickly crowd out such a utopian environment. But normal conditions were never the point of the Q redesign. They had altered their subjects so that they could conceive only after mating an enormous number of potential suitors, continually over a period of decades. While this took care of the population problem, it also made the species less adaptable. Without any point in sexual competition, natural selection would progress only at a glacial pace. Fortunately, their stable microcosm remained free of environmental catastrophes even after the Q left. All these changes had made the hedonist day. Their lives were juxtaposed routines of browsing, sleeping, and mind-blowing sex. Troubled neither by the concerns of disease or pregnancy, aloof and carefree, they enjoyed the most pleasurable times of all mankind's, albeit with the intellectual capabilities of 3-year-olds. It didn't really matter, though. Who needed to think when having such a nice time, after all? Satyriacs, descendants of the hedonists. Their pleasure-drenched existence, locked between their static paradise world and their inherently slow pace of evolution, seemed immune to change. Perhaps this was true for 1,000,000 years or so, but on a larger scale, complete stasis was a fable. During a particular era, geologic upheavals threw up huge masses of land over the shallow oceans of their world. The hedonists, until then trapped on a singular island no bigger than today's Iceland, were not late to colonize these new pastures. This was more of a necessary exodus, since the events that raised the new lands had also thrown up enormous clouds of ash that smothered the atmosphere and blocked out the sun. Their innocence finally spoiled, most of the hedonists died out, unable to adapt. The only survivors were fast-breeding freaks who had abandoned the reproductive quirks of their ancestors. It was these forms that colonized the newborn continent and gave rise to a multitude of species, which included the Satyriacs, sentient heirs to the hedonists. These beings resembled their ancestors to a great degree, except that they now sported enormous tails, boneless organs of balance woven out of extended pelvic muscles and fat. Along this appendage, their entire bodies were reoriented in horizontal, almost dinosaurian postures. Although they had abandoned the frantic reproductive strategies of their ancestors, their social lives still retained a delightful tint of casual promiscuity. The Satyriac civilization was quick to establish itself globally, for even with the additional landmass, the terrestrial domain of their world remained no larger than Australia. For a while, 3 and then 2 land empires competed against each other before dissolving into a myriad of smaller nations and finally reunifying into a coherent world order. From this point on, the Satyriac world once again became a Valhalla of pleasure with festivals, concerts, and ritualized orgies punctuating every working week. This time, however, it could all be savored by true intelligence.